Haven't I already talked to most of you this morning? No? That's a lot of familiar faces here.
Bon, très bien. Donc, pour gagner du temps, sans plus attendre, on va passer à la première question qui est en bas à gauche.
Bonjour, Monsieur Spielberg. Hi.
Bonjour.
Merci beaucoup pour tout le plaisir que vous nous donnez. Thank you very much. J'ai une question sur votre manière de raconter les films en images, qui est très bien illustrée par Cheval de guerre. La plupart des films avant spectacle, des films d'action, utilisent des montages très nerveux, des plans très serrés, des enchaînements de plans comme ça, avec un rythme soutenu. Et vous êtes à contre-courant de ça, vous utilisez des plans larges, des mouvements de caméra en, souvent des plans séquences, avec un jeu sur la composition. Je voulais savoir si cette manière de raconter les histoires visuelles, en quoi elle est importante pour vous de cette manière-là, d'un point de vue narratif et émotionnel.
So the first question is you've got a very particular way of filming action scenes because a lot of people use a very edgy, sharp, jumpy cut way of looking at it. You use a lot of wide angles, it's much slower pace, it's much ampler. So is there a particular narrative reasoning behind this?
There's no reason behind it, as a storytelling exercise of storytelling. But what it does is it lets the audience have a chance to exist in the moment longer than you would in a normal movie where the cutting is, where the infusion of energy comes from not what takes place in the frame, but what takes place in the cutting of the frames. In most films, the montage is so frenetic that you feel your heart starting to beat, not because of any image, but it's because of how quickly the images are changing. And I believe in letting images endure if they can live up to themselves and have earned the right to exist if they're good enough. You can watch an image for a long time and let the audience decide, where to put, to set their eyes. So in this movie, especially with Joey the horse, it's much more interesting watching this beautiful, magnificent animal running for a long time without having to go to the cutting room to rescue it from itself. He didn't need any rescuing. He was good in those long running shots.
Yes, hello. Gilles talked about tracking shots. There is an incredible tracking shot in the film, in the trenches, with the horse running, jumping, falling, running again. Yesterday you said that there was no digital horse in the film.
No, I said there were 3 shots.
3 shots. So that's why?
No, that's not one. That was not.
How did you do that?
By putting the horse in the trench and having him run to his trainer. He was very happy to run very quickly to his trainer. As we moved the camera with him, the trainer was behind, and he was trained to run. I mean, he was a great runner, and he wasn't intimidated or frightened. And I think the most important thing was Bobby Lovegren, who was the horse whisperer that trained all the horses to be the one Joey, was very particular in one thing. The horses had to feel that they were always safe. Once they felt safe, they trusted us, and they did things that an ordinary horse wouldn't do, who was not so trusting. And so Bobby set a tone of such trust between animal and animal handler and the cast as well, that the horses just perform miracles for us. But there were 3 specific shots where I would never let a horse do that. And that's where we used a little bit of digital magic to make it look real. But only 3 shots.
This shot is magic.
What part?
This shot is magic.
Yeah, that one. But that wasn't the digital shot you're talking about. That wasn't one of them.
Okay.
Tout au long de son parcours, Joey est un cheval qui ne rencontre que des hommes et des femmes qui le nourrissent, l'aident, le soignent et surtout cherchent à le sauver. Alors cette attraction qu'il exerce sur tout le monde, comment vous appelez ça, Monsieur Spielberg? Est-ce que c'est de la chance? Est-ce que c'est de la séduction ou du mérite?
So throughout the film, Joey comes across people who want to help him all the time. They feed him, they take care of him. What would you call that? Is it luck or is it something else?
Luck.
Yeah. Is it luck? Is it seduction? Is it attractiveness?
I think, for one thing, remember Joey wasn't pulling a cannon for 3 years. No horse lasted very long in World War I. They died very quickly. Over 5 million horses died during the First World War. They would be just spent. They'd be used until they dropped. They wouldn't give horses a break. They would haul cannon, haul ambulance, haul carriages until they would just fall. And Joey, remember, came into the war late, And Joey was looking great when he went to the French farm. He was fed, he was taken care of, he was loved by Emily. So when the Germans recovered Joey, and Joey wound up in the hands of the German handler Friedrich, Friedrich had never seen such a magnificent looking horse. And Friedrich, remember, he looks over his shoulder and he sees these mangy horses in a corral just behind him, and looks back at these two magnificent animals and really admired their beauty and how they possibly could survive looking that good for that long under those circumstances.
Do you think Joey had something extra, something else?
Joey does have something else. Joey has a spirit in him that you can't really put your finger on, and I never tried to be specific about what that was. It was just something very tenacious and courageous and hopeful about that particular animal.
Hi. I have a question about new technologies. Will you use technologies like performance capture, shooting in 3D or in IMAX, or in 48 frames per second projects apart from Tintin? And talking about Tintin, which stories have been chosen for Peter Jackson's sequel?
I'm not going to tell what stories have been chosen for Peter Jackson's sequel, because Peter and I agreed that we weren't going to let that information out yet. The script is now being written. It's more than one book, but it's not 3 books, so that means it's 2 books that we're combining. As we combined 2.5 books, with The Secret of the Unicorn. And Peter will start work on the film this year. When he's done shooting The Hobbit, he'll begin his performance capture work with the actors later in 2012, which I'm very excited about. And of course, I'm hoping I'll be able to direct the 3rd one. I'd love to go back and direct the 3rd one because I had so much fun on the 1st one. I'm not sold on the 48 frame digital look that movies are beginning. I know that Avatar 2 is being shot that way, that Peter's shooting The Hobbit that way. I haven't seen The Hobbit test. Peter's volunteered to show me some tests with 48 cycles, 48 frames per second, and I'll see how they look. My fear about 48 frames is it looks almost like live television. It doesn't look like film anymore. So I'm not going to tell you I'm never going to work in that medium, but right now, as long as there's a laboratory that will develop photochemically film, I'm going to stay with film.
And shooting 3D?
Well, it worked for Tintin. I had the choice to do War Horse in 3D, and I chose not to. 3D is a tool of choice. It should never be a mandate.
Hi, Mr. Spielberg, such an honor. Quand vous travaillez avec des vrais comédiens, vous pouvez filmer leurs émotions qu'ils jouent afin de nous les transmettre aux spectateurs. Pour War Horse, le personnage principal est un cheval. Comment vous avez abordé votre mise en scène autant artistiquement que techniquement pour que l'émotion existe chez ce personnage et nous la transmettre?
When you're working with live actors, of course you can direct them to get a particular emotion across. How did you manage to do this with a horse? How did you get the horse to express what you were looking for?
Part of getting a horse to show you how it's supposed to be feeling the way actors do naturally had many steps. It wasn't just, I didn't walk to the horse and direct the horse personally. No, I didn't do that, but I hired a brilliant horse person, a horse whisperer named Bobby Lovegren, who had trained horses for a movie my company produced called Seabiscuit some years ago. And we hired Bobby, and Bobby had very little time, but he did amazing work getting these horses to do what the script required them to do. And when I wanted to change the script, when I had a new idea for the horse, I simply went to Bobby. And I asked him, how long will it take you to train the horse to do this? And Bobby would honestly tell me, it'll take me a day, a week. And then I would accept whatever he told me if that was the right way to get the required emotion or result. So all the real horse direction, I did it through another person.
Je voudrais revenir sur votre manière de filmer, notamment dans la première partie qui se passe dans le Devon. Est-ce que c'est un hommage à John Ford? Parce que dans le choix de vos couleurs, on a l'impression de retrouver du John Ford, et notamment L'Homme Tranquille avec John Wayne. Est-ce que c'est volontaire ou pas?
I'd like to come back to the way you filmed things in the very first part of the film, in Devon. It's very reminiscent of John Ford and the choice of the colours and so on. Was it a deliberate tribute you were paying?
No, it wasn't a
The Quiet Man in particular.
It was the what?
The Quiet Man.
No, it wasn't really. I wasn't trying to pay homage to John Ford, although I revere John Ford, as all of us do, all of us should. I wasn't, but I just knew that the same principles, the same classical bones of this story of War Horse are similar to some of the classical stories of the movies of the 1930s that were told by Raoul Walsh and John Ford and Howard Hawks and Victor Fleming and Michael Curtiz. And it was like a classical story. It's what first attracted me to it. And of course, I'm shooting in the most beautiful part of England, Devon. And you don't put a close-up lens on a landscape like Devon. You shoot wide, the way Ford shot Monument Valley wide. So of course, did Ford cross my mind? Yes. Was I intentionally going back looking at Ford pictures and trying to mock what he did? Never.
Good morning, sir. Je vais poser la question en français. Il y a un plan assez étonnant dans le film sur les mailles d'un pull qui se transforment en champ labouré, qui est trafiqué numériquement, et qui m'a rappelé un plan assez similaire dans Tintin aussi, où deux mains qui se serrent devenaient une colline. Il nous a habitués depuis la guerre des mondes, Steven Spielberg, dans sa mise en scène, à utiliser de plus en plus le numérique. Est-ce que la révolution numérique va l'aider à tendre vers, un peu plus vers ce vers quoi il a toujours tendu, c'est-à-dire un cinéma de l'évocation pure et de l'image dégagée de toute signification appuyée par les dialogues ou par le scénario.
So there's a scene in the film with the plowed field, which is digitally worked on, and there are other things in Tintin as well. It's very reminiscent of things like that. Is digital technology going to help you to move towards some sort of pure evocation of image without the support of dialogue or narrative as such?
Well, let me correct you there. There was no digital work done at all with the plowed field. That was we plowed that field. That was done by hard labor, not by special effects geniuses. That was done by a plow and a lot of people working really hard to plow a lot of acres for the movie. So there was no digital work whatsoever in any of those scenes. There's hardly any digital work at all in War Horse. There were some.
About the transition when she's knitting.
Oh, that.
And the plow when
Thank you. I just got a clarification. Now I understand. No, that was just a very smooth way of showing what that field should look like while the mother was knitting. And for one moment, you get a glimpse of could that field ever look that way with Albert coaxing Joey. And that was just a little bit of a tease. And I love transitions. Tintin is full of transitions that were a lot of fun to invent and to create, and I love transitions in movies. It makes the cuts almost seamless, one to the next. But I think that digital cinema has a place in analog cinema when the digital is not noticeable. But the second you make a movie and you see 1,000 soldiers or 100,000 soldiers running over a hill, you know that there are not 100,000 soldiers available to anybody on the face of the planet today for any sensible cost. And so you know that that is not real. As real as it looks, you know it's not real. It's up to you to decide how far you're going to allow us to push the envelope of digital creativity. You know, you accepted my digital dinosaurs because you wanted to enjoy and be scared by the story, so you accepted the digital dinosaurs. But there is a point where audiences are going to reject digital special effects and start to maybe go to movies where we actually do something that existed in real space and real time, the way David Lean used to do it. And there's going to be a moment where we, the audience, will demand, we want to see the real thing, where we know you can do anything you could imagine in a digital workshop. Now show us what it would really look like. And I'm hoping, in a sense, that War Horse did that with a few digital exceptions. War Horse is a very pure analog movie.
You worked on water, you worked with children, you work now with animals. It seems not that hard. And part two, is it true that you ever wanted to cast David Toulis as a dog?
I did want to cast David Toulis as a dog. Oh, how do you know that? Nobody knows that.
He told me.
He told you. That's how you know it. Okay. I tried to cast David Toulis as a dog. I had a story about a dog that's reincarnated as a man, and my goodness, I wanted to see David Toulis play a dog, but he just wasn't willing or ready to play that character, and he said no. What was your first question? I'm sorry.
But working on water, working with children, working with animals, for you it doesn't seem that hard, all three. Because they say it's a tough job.
Every job, every picture is tough. Every movie presents its own challenges. Working with kids has never been hard for me, which is why I have 7 kids of my own right now. And working with animals was not hard for me at all on Warhorse. It was challenging because we had to be patient and we had to wait sometimes, but it wasn't hard. What was hard, what was impossible, was working on water. And I've never made another movie on the water since Jaws because it's impossible. You can't do it. Unless it's digital water like in Tintin, then it's okay.
Hello, Mr. Spielberg. Je vais vous poser la question en français. Croire en l'impossible, c'est un petit peu la devise de cheval de guerre.
Parlez bien dans le micro.
Ah pardon, excusez-moi.
Merci beaucoup.
Croire en l'impossible, c'est un petit peu la devise de cheval de guerre. Et j'aurais voulu savoir si c'était une devise personnelle qui vous accompagnait dans votre vie de tous les jours et dans votre carrière.
Sort of an underlying, a sort of motto you could put to Warhorse would be believing in the impossible. Is this your sort of own personal mantra in a way?
Well, you know, no, it's not my mantra. No, I don't think so. It sounds good. I could claim it as my mantra, then you would know I'd be lying to you. You know, Warhorse is really about hope springs eternal. You know, that's sort of how I characterize it. Warhorse is about an animal that can only hope, that can only be optimistic, that is only positive as a force of nature, and brings people who are too smart for their own good, who are fighting each other in a senseless war, to come to terms with their own humanity, if only for a couple of minutes, because of an animal that brings human beings together. That was at the heart of why I wanted to tell this story and make this movie.
Oui, bonjour. 2 questions, Stephen. The first one is about, I remember from an interview with Viggo Mortensen, he was talking about his experience